Welcome back to another episode of UncommonWealth, the show where we dive into the mindsets, moves, and mechanics behind building generational wealth. I'm pleased to welcome Nikki Ubaldini, co-founding agent of the Gary Nikki Team at Keller Williams, serving the Tampa Bay, Florida area with deep roots across markets like Clearwater, Palm Harbor, Tarpon Springs, and beyond. Across a well-established career in real estate, Nikki's known not just for closing transactions, but for fostering long-term relationships and delivering concierge-level service to both buyers and sellers. Whether she's guiding clients toward their first home or helping families build generational wealth through property, Nikki brings empathy, consistency, and a strategic insight to every conversation and relationship. Nikki, let's start from the beginning. Can you share a little bit of your backstory, how'd the business come to life and what those early years look like for you?
Oh, wow. Well, we got into real estate by accident, actually. My husband and I were in the entertainment business. I was a professional dancer, choreographer, not a stripper.
Thank you for the clarification.
I just have to clarify that. And my husband was a musician, musical director, and we met actually in that industry. And we had an experience where we had purchased a home here in Florida, our very first home. And then within 2 months, we got an opportunity to go to Canada. And we moved to Canada and we worked in a show in Canada. Actually, we founded the show where Shania Twain was discovered. But yeah, that's a little bit of history. Yeah.
So you're credited with kind of helping her get her start.
Oh, no. She came in after we had left. We'd already founded the show. Yeah.
Okay.
We left and then she came in. And that's how that all happened.
Darn.
But anyway, so we purchased a home up there and felt we were kind of misdirected by the person who helped us purchase the home. And, we bought the house. We loved the house. Then we made a decision to move back to the Florida. And we rented the house for a year. And then we took a massive hit. And it cost us $10,000 to close the deal and sell the property. But we thought, we really like buying real estate, because in the meantime, when we were in Canada, we bought a second home in Florida with my sister. So we owned 2 homes in Florida and we're selling the one in Canada. And we said, we really want to do this investment thing. So but we want to get our real estate license so we're not misled the next time, but we're never going to sell real estate. So we answered an ad about getting your license, and all you had to do was keep your license there for a year. And we kind of snickered, we're going to, we're not going to really ever sell real estate. Well, we were entertaining at night. So 6 nights a week we were working, and we get our license and somebody in the office says, well, why don't you come to an office meeting? Because you don't work during the day. And we said, okay. So we showed up and they challenged myself and my husband. And when somebody challenges us, that's game over. They said, well, why are you guys not lead generating? Why are you not trying to do this business, blah, blah, blah. And we thought, we can do this. We can do this business. And the rest is history. So 40 years ago, we started lead genning and, helping people buy and sell real estate. I was very young. I was only 22. And interestingly enough, it was a lot of people looked at you and went, you're kind of young. I said, yeah, but I already own 3 houses.
Boom. Yeah.
My first home I purchased when I had just turned 18. And so
that shifts the paradigm on the conversation pretty quick.
Yeah, it certainly did. So, and then, we built our real estate practice, continue to grow it, helping other agents build their wealth too, as well as our customers, and our clients that we like to say are clients for life. Now we're selling the grandchildren and the great grandchildren. Actually our son-in-law is now running our team.
No kidding.
Yeah. So him and another young lady are running our team. And my husband and I kind of shifted into more leadership where we're now helping agents to build their wealth and help them to help their clients build their wealth.
I want to put a pin in that. I'm going to come right back to that here in a second. But how big is the organization that you've built now? Like, how does it, tell me, you were telling me before we got started recording the size and the breadth and the scope of the organization you built. So share that with us.
Well, we have the team, and the team only consists of about 5 people, and so that's the sales team. And then we also Gary and we were blessed to have the opportunity to build South Florida region for Keller Williams Realty, and we started that in 2000, and we built that for the last 25 plus years. We also are part of the Ohio Valley region, so we're partners in that. We have 3 what we call market centers or offices. Right now, we have just over 800 agents in those 3 offices. And we also have 2 title companies that we own.
That's great. And so
Mhm.
back to what we put a pin in, now that the business is operating at scale, what's the hardest part for you staying out of the minutia of the day-to-day activity as much as you can while still growing and protecting what you've built?
Well, that's a very good question. Here's the thing. You got to focus on what's most important in your day. And, when you water the weeds, you only get weeds.
Mm.
And I think too many times people spend so much time in the weeds, they never get to see the flowers. So I really focus on what's going to make a difference in my day today. So what's the 1 or 2 things that I really must get done in order that nothing else matters, whether it gets done or not.
Yeah.
And that's the premise that we always live by. So every day there's a purpose. Instead of living in protection of what we built, we live on focus of how we can continue to grow it.
Tell me more about that.
Okay. So it's kind of like when you play not to lose versus playing to win, it's a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're in a protection mode, remember what you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on, I'm afraid and stuff might happen and might take away what I have, I hate to say it, but you kind of attract that to yourself. I'm all about energy and all of that. And I've seen it happen. I've seen my husband and I literally push business away because of our mindsets.
Yeah.
And when you flip that and you say, that's just a blip in the road. What else can we do to stay focused and keep moving forward? And I think this is where people get caught up in survival or success. And survival is about living every day. I got to pay my bills and that's all I can think about. Versus when you stop dreaming, you stop having success.
Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. So the frequency, the universe, the frequency, and if you're faith-based, it's, faith in God, and you're exactly right. And I've been working on this, what you just talked about. I've been working on it, and you never finish it. It's a constant effort, right? But your mind doesn't know. What Dr. Dispenza says is your mind doesn't know the difference between what you're thinking and what reality is.
Exactly.
And so if you're always in that protection, scarcity mindset, stress mindset, you're going to attract that. But if you live in abundance with gratitude and, calmness and patience, then you're going to attract that as well.
That's exactly right.
So it's nothing is a coincidence. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think as entrepreneurs and as business owners, we do too often, especially initially, if you haven't been coached or trained, you're focusing on protecting from the negatives happening and not attracting more of the positives. When did you realize you were building more than just a business, that this was not only becoming real lasting wealth for you and your husband, but as you mentioned, building wealth for your agents as well?
Well, it's interesting because for many years it was just my husband and I and our team, and we kind of intuitively built the team. There was no real models or anything back 40 years ago when we were doing this. We knew that we had gotten to scale where only the 2 of us could only do so much, and so you bring in your first assistant, which is a big, oh my gosh, now I'm responsible for somebody else's, living. But it's amazing when you shift that thought process of, oh, no, they're gonna give me back time so I can
Right.
continue to build.
Right.
And I think a lot of agents forget that.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs, period, forget that. They think, oh, no, I have to do everything. And that's a big fallacy because we're not good at everything.
No.
And we tend to try to do the stuff that we aren't so good at that spends 10 times the time than we should have if we just hired somebody to help us.
I had a guest on not too long ago, and he said his father, who had just recently passed away, but his father told him, you got to let $10 an hour employees do $10 an hour work.
It's great.
And he doesn't mean to diminish anybody's
No.
$10 an hour work
No.
because it's vitally important. But as executive, as owners, as CEOs, as, the head entrepreneur, we've got to be focused on the much bigger items and not get stuck in the weeds. And you're right. When you do hire your first assistant, you realize, oh my gosh, how do I keep them busy? How do I keep them productive? And you can't do two jobs at the same time,
No.
right?
But if you hire the right person, they will come in and take stuff from you.
Yeah.
If you hire the wrong person, they're sitting there waiting for you to tell them what to do. And that all goes back to really understanding, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? What kind of person am I looking for? And sadly, we tend to hire people just like us, which is good.
Which is not what you want, right?
No.
You want to hire the exact opposite, in fact.
Well, yes, typically, absolutely. My current EA, she does all kinds of things for us. She works for both. She started primarily for me, and now she does a lot for my husband as well. But we've expanded her brain probably farther than she thought she would ever do the things that she's doing. And that's all part of giving her an opportunity too. So we're growing her and helping her to grow in her thought process. Going back to the per hour, thought process. I think so many times agents and entrepreneurs diminish their own values because of their own mindsets. And a lot of that is how they were raised. Financial wealth is a mindset. It starts here. It doesn't start here. And I think people think it starts, until I get the money, I'm not going to have the mindset. No. You have to think like a wealthy person. And, one of the things that we've taught a lot of our agents, we teach these classes about wealth building, is how many of them were brought up where their parents, well-intending, well-meaning parents said, you got to work hard to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they go, and like half the room does this, and you say, well, that's understandable. However, let me ask you, have you seen the guy outside that's doing the road work, digging the ditch? And they say,
working
well, yeah.
hard.
I said, he's working hard. Is he making lots of money? Well, probably not, and so they get, and then they don't see, like when you work on a commission world like we do, they get big chunks of money. Okay. So sometimes they don't value that because it's a big chunk of money. And what I mean by that is they throw money at problems instead of bettering their skills to handle the problems.
No, I think that's an extremely good point. You're right, which again is, I'm sensing and hearing the Dr. Dispenza philosophy kind of mixed in there as well. But we are taught as kids, work hard and you'll make a good living. And as entrepreneurs, that's kind of ingrained in us, right? Especially when our parents grew up in, the 50s, 60s, 70s, or earlier than that, because that's the greatest generation. And that's what they did in the Industrial Revolution. They worked hard, right? After World War II. But this environment, this economy that we're in now, it's not necessarily that way, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So some business owners, entrepreneurs view their enterprise as a retirement plan, meaning they're going to shove every available dollar back into it, build it, and then they're going to sell it, or someone's going to buy it, and they're going to get a huge bucket of money and ride off into the sunset, and that's their retirement. And others kind of build wealth separately and diversify as they go. Not obviously they want the large exit, but they're putting plans in place in case it doesn't happen. What strategies over the last 30 plus years have you employed? Obviously, I know you're a real estate person. You own 3 pieces of real estate.
Oh, and more than that.
Before you got into the real estate business, you had 3 pieces of property. So I expect you have a very large portfolio now. But how do you do that for yourself?
Well, it's interesting. I have to give credit to my husband on a lot of this because my husband, well, we both grew up poor. Okay, just so that you know that. His father was on disability. His mother cleaned houses. I had a single parent with raising 4 kids who worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over our head. We had food stamps. I was a free lunch kid. So we both grew up with a desire to learn and to understand money more. All right. So I think that it starts there. But my husband was great from day one. He was always a phenomenal saver. Like you put X amount of dollars in the bank here, and X amount, and you live on X amount of dollars. And Jim Rohn, who you've probably heard before,
absolutely,
he talks about that. And so we studied great leaders like that who talk about, first thing you do is you take out your taxes, because when you get paid in commissions, nobody's taking your taxes out.
Right.
So you put you take out your taxes, then you take out your investment money. Yep. Then you take out, what am I going to pay myself? And then the rest goes into the savings. And we started SEPs which of course was many years ago. And we started them as soon as, we were 20s, in our 20s, and we started doing things like that sadly, the youth today don't understand the compounding effect. And how when you start young, the difference that it makes.
Or the cost of waiting, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, both of our children, when they were born, we used our kids in our advertisements, for our business. And so you can pay your children. So we paid them tax-free for all these years. They've been on the payroll because they've been part of our whole marketing. People have watched them grow up, which is kind of a neat thing for the consumers.
Cool. Yeah.
But our children have these phenomenal bank accounts now because we just put everything into, IRAs for them, Roth IRAs for them. And now they're young adults. They're in the 31 and 34. And they both own their own homes. One owns 2 houses. They have a nice nest egg for the future. And the first thing they did in their new jobs is, there's a 401k. We're going to put the money away, So we've taught them to think like that over time, money grows and it brings you financial wealth and opportunity. The problem is when you throw everything into your business in hopes of it paying off back to you. We've seen situations where that doesn't work.
Right.
We've experienced something recently like that. And you can't put all your eggs in that basket. You've got to be prepared. Like this is what you do. You help people with long-term wealth. So you understand, I believe that it's a lifelong process. And the best thing people can do for their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren is to have these conversations early and to teach them that money compounds, make smart investments, open up those Roth IRAs for those babies and just be, whatever it is.
I love that. How do you think about liquidity and flexibility in your life today so that you're not locked into the business? So, you probably achieved financial independence, for many years already, but that's all relative. That can change. So how do you think about creating liquidity and flexibility so that your next chapter is right there without being locked into the business?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit crass in what I say. My husband calls it FU money.
Oh, yeah.
And he calls it FU money, that when you say, I want to have an FU account so that I don't ever have to do the things that I don't want to do, or if somebody puts me in a position that makes me uncomfortable or goes against my beliefs, my morality, my integrity, I can walk away and not even think about that situation. And I think people put themselves in positions where they stay in organizations, they continue to work with people that they probably shouldn't be working with because of fear of the loss.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually reading something the other day. I don't know if it popped up on one of my social media feeds. I get a lot of financial stuff coming at me, obviously. And it talked about FU money, and it tried to quantify FU money based on how much they're paying in mortgage. And it said how much they had to have. And in my mind, I'm like, this is the wrong definition of FU money. Because if you have FU money, you don't have a mortgage to speak of.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
That's the whole point. First thing you do is you pay off your house.
Yeah, the whole point is you don't owe anybody a thing, or you could eliminate any and all debt at any given point in time and just say F you to everybody. So it's crazy that I think we have the same definition of that, but there's an alternative definition where they're still having them beholden to somebody else. And I think it's a societal issue. I think it's a generational issue, right? I mean, they don't give themselves the opportunity, or I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's not. They're not extremely big thinkers. Like, they're not attracting the massive success. They're doing just enough to have a comfortable life.
Well, and that's survival.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's survival, then there's success, and then there's significance.
From Success to Significance is a great book. Yeah.
And that, in my definition of that, is when you have significance, you're able to give back to help other people in areas that are close and near and dear to your heart, whatever that happens to be. And of course, if you're a follower, it's time, treasure, and talents, right? I mean, those are the three things that you can do. And for some people, they don't have time. They may have talents, but they don't have time to give their talents. So treasure is where they want to be able to give.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said, people aren't thinking in this big picture world. They think on a day-to-day. But you know what? I think our world conditions us to think like that.
I agree.
All right. It conditions us to, it's only this much money per month. People buy cars by payment. People buy houses by payment.
Yeah.
They don't think about, if I get a 30-year mortgage and I put an extra $100 to the principal every single month, pretty much I'm going to pay that off between 15 to 17 years, depending on my interest rate. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But people don't think like that. And an extra $100 a month is not a lot of money in reality, but people don't kind of grasp that.
I did a video on that very topic about a year plus ago on my YouTube channel, and it's the same concept, but instead of that extra $100 a month going to the mortgage company, I have that extra $100 a month going into a permanent life insurance vehicle.
Same concept.
Yeah, that builds up off to the side, and then in 15 years, you take a distribution from that to pay off the mortgage. Exactly, but same concept. Exactly.
Right. It's the same concept, and once again, that goes back to the FU money. I mean, I can tell you that we have one property where we had a tenant had just moved out. We went off out of town. We had the place all redone while we were gone. We come back a week and a half later to water pouring out of the front door of the property. Yeah. And there was a pinhole leak behind the washing machine that had completely flooded. So nobody had been in the property for 10 days. Guess what? I'm in Florida, mold all the
everywhere.
Way up. Everywhere, mold. It was a small house, thank God. But, so we, insurance, blah, blah, blah. Well, then they start giving you a hard time. We still had a mortgage on that because the interest rate was so low, we were leveraging our money.
Yeah.
And they're giving us a hard time and to pay this up. We said, screw you.
F you.
Mortgage is paid off. We're gonna just we'll get this handled with the insurance company. And we did it on another situation where they were giving us a hard time about their escrow and their insurance. My husband said, I'm done. I'm paying you off, and the only reason we've ever kept them is to leverage our money.
Well, absolutely. The power of other people's money, properly applied. And I do that inside of the life insurance business as well. Sometimes we will, instead of having business owners or wealthy individuals pay the premiums out of pocket, we'll have banks finance the premiums into the life insurance policy. And it's the same thing, right? Same concept, because you're really good at making money with your money and investing it in other properties and other businesses, right? It's still buying a property or buying a life insurance policy at a 5% interest rate or a 6%, or at the time it was probably less than 4% interest rate.
Correct.
That makes all the sense in the world, right?
Right.
As long as you have that FU money where you can eliminate the debt at any point in time if you wanted to.
Well, and right. I mean, you're probably well versed on these life insurance annuities that, you can really play with the caps and, that's some phenomenal opportunity. If you've got excess money sitting over here, why not be a little more aggressive and make some more money, yet there's still a protection,
Well, and we call it properly applied leverage, right?
Right. There you go. I love that.
Because it makes sense. And that's why my conversations in the real estate world is, we're not in the same business, but we're in the same philosophy. We're just using a different asset class to achieve the same thing. So the wealthy in the United States have been using permanent life insurance as a financial tool for decades. What have you guys done, if, without getting into super detailed stuff, but using life insurance to create the legacy, to protect your income taxes, to create tax-free money? What have you guys done?
Pretty much everything. We have a phenomenal financial planner who we've worked with for about 30 years. Very, very smart. Now his son is brilliant, who's come into the business over the last 15 years, and his dad's getting ready to retire. So son is kind of taking over. But we've done all those pieces where we have, with life insurance, lots of different insurance types of programs. And so I would strongly advise people to find somebody that's well-versed and understands. And it's not about them making money. Unfortunately, as you and I both know, just as there are bad real estate agents, there are bad insurance agents who sell products to get them to make them money, make the commission versus does the product really work for the client? We sit down with our financial planner and we say, well, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? So early on, we were, a little bit more aggressive. The younger you are, the more aggressive you can be. As we start getting older, we've gotten a little bit more moderate. But now we have a little bit of an abundance. So we took some of that and now we're going to be a little bit more aggressive again to reap the rewards. And this is what we're doing. We're doing right now the life insurance annuities.
And you take a slice, right? And it's about, to a certain extent, it's about growth and building up your assets. And then when you achieve that, it's about preserving that.
Right.
And then the next step beyond that, it's okay, how can we carve out a piece and really grow that? And if it wins, it wins. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we haven't affected our overall wealth.
That's exactly where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And we're in the estate planning phase. We have 2 grandchildren. We've set them up with 529s. We've got, lots of different things that we've done for our children. And of course, setting up trusts, where, how the money is going to flow. Because we want to have legacy to our money, meaning that not just to our grandkids, but to our great grandkids and our great grandkids, and
generational wealth,
that far exceeds our lifetime and even our children's lifetime.
Well, how you guarantee that your great grandkids and their kids remember your name is you leave a lot of money in a trust.
Well, what we don't want to have though is trust fund babies.
Well, have you figured out how to protect against that?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for the listeners, one of the fun things about that is you can set up your trust, and I'm preaching to the choir here, Nikki, but you can set up the trust where you don't have trust fund recipients. In other words, they don't just get money to get money.
Mm-mm.
They have
Mm-mm.
to earn money. So you can do a provision that says they can get a distribution from the trust that equals whatever their W-2 or 1099 was
Correct.
for the
You could
year.
do that.
You can
You
do it
put
to pay for
stipulations
education.
on
Yeah.
what they can use the trust money for.
Yeah.
Put age requirements on it. Make sure that you have a professional trustee that's also
Yeah. A third
involved in
party
that third
trustee.
party trustee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing, which I don't want to get, this is something, we love our son-in-laws dearly, but we also had to think about, what if something happened to our daughters, meaning if they were to
In a
pass,
divorce.
to get, well, more if they
Okay.
passed.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so here's the problem. More than likely that spouse is going to remarry. Well, then guess where that wealth goes? It goes
Yeah.
outside of the family line.
Yeah.
And then the grandkids could get slighted, and then the great grandkids could get slighted. So, those are sensitive conversations to have with your family and with your children. And what I love is that, no, we did not have our son-in-law sign a prenup. That is, we're Catholic, and that's actually not allowed in the Catholic faith because you're not supposed to be getting a divorce.
But you can put a per stirpes provision in there.
Well, exactly. So what we did was both of our son-in-laws understood that any wealth was going to be, passed through to our children, but our children can choose to spend share and whatever, but we still have to protect the wealth. So, it's a conversation that has to happen, and it's a hard conversation, but as they both said, look, you earned it. We get it. It's your family, and that's where it should stay.
But this is part of, the Uncommon Wealth. That's the name of the podcast. And,
right.
And having these conversations, and I'm so glad you brought this up because, when I say it, it's, oh, John's just talking about it again. But to hear you say it, it's validity, right? Because as you build wealth and you create legacy and you create generational wealth, you do have to think about these things. And luckily in the United States, we've got blueprints to follow. Like you can look at a good example of the Rockefellers and how they created generational wealth. And then you can look at an example of the Vanderbilts and how they didn't do such a good job of creating generational wealth. And then you're right, having a solid financial planner, a good estate planning attorney, a good tax advisor, and a team of people together makes, all the difference. So how are you thinking about the next 10 to 20 years? Not just in business, but personally and financially.
I'm not sure I understand your question other than I am learning to be a little bit more than to do. And so I'm at a point in my life where, for the last 50 years, I have gotten up every day, hit the ground, running, banging the trays, making things happen from very early on. And part of that was because I knew that I did not want to live paycheck to paycheck like my mom had to live with raising 4 kids. She did an amazing job. I have to say all 4 of us were very successful and we've all done very well. And in fact, when my oldest sister passed, unfortunately, about 7 years ago, she left my mother very comfortable. And that's I'm very grateful for that because, while my mother went through, her whole life, she didn't really have anything other than Social Security, and her kids helping her. Yeah. And that takes away from their dignity.
It does.
So I believe that, our focus now is learning how to be more, helping our children to grow and understand wealth. And it's so funny because my youngest daughter says to her, well, it's her future husband. They're getting married in October. She says to him and his brother, if you don't understand the rules of money, you don't get to keep the money. And these are things that we started telling them when they were 8 years old.
That's so cool.
We played the rich dad, poor poor dad games, cash flow quadrant games with our kids when they were little. So they understood the process of money and what it means to build wealth. So, we've gotten ourselves involved in a lot more philanthropy. Yeah. And we're involved in some organizations where we feel that we can help make a difference for people. It's called Metropolitan Ministries here, and it's not a handout, it's a hand up. So there's a lot of educational opportunities where we feel like we can spend some time helping people learn the rules of money so that they can keep their money as they continue to grow and learn. So we just want our money to A, take care of our family, but B, take care of the community in the best way that we believe it possibly can.
Well, that's success to significance,
that's
as
what
you
it's
just
at.
mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So one of my favorite wrap-up questions, this has been amazing, Nikki. One of my favorite wrap-up questions is, what's something you know now about business or wealth that you wish you would have understood a decade ago?
A decade? Okay. A couple things about business is put it all in writing.
No handshakes.
No, even though there's people that you can do business with on a handshake, even with them, put it in writing. Make sure you understand what it says. Can you live with the consequences? Yeah. And it is what it is.
That's great.
Okay, that's for that. As far as wealth, I knew this more than a decade ago, which was you got to start really early or as soon as you can. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a lot to grow an opportunity. Teaching young people about money maybe that's my next thing that I want to do. Just they don't understand. They're not given any of those tools. And then we wonder why they get buried in debt.
I'm not sure it's by mistake either, right?
Well, no.
Right? I mean, in high school, they need to be learning the basics of money, those 4 quadrants that you talked about. And especially in college, they need to be learning about, you go through finance, get a finance degree, you don't learn any of this stuff.
No,
right?
You don't.
Corporate finance, but you don't learn personal finance. And it's just a gaping hole in our educational system.
But guess what? They get credit card offerings. Both of my girls would present to us, look, I got another credit card offering. Yeah. That you and these kids were not mine because they knew better than that. But these kids they're credit card after credit card, student loans like crazy, living on their student loans instead of getting a job.
I was in college in the late 90s, and I remember the credit card companies for a t-shirt, a free t-shirt, you would sign up for a credit card for a free t-shirt. Yeah. And kids would do it all day long.
Absolutely. Or a coupon for a hamburger.
Yeah.
Or a Subway sandwich or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So let's do a quick lightning round before I let you go. This has been amazing. Rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 1 or 2, 3 questions. Just the quickest answer that comes off your head. I'm interested to know the first one. A book that changed how you view business or wealth.
How I view business or wealth. Think and Grow Rich.
Okay, that's a good one. I thought you were going to come at me with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but
Think and Grow Rich is the first one.
That's a great one. Mm-hmm. What's the best investment you made, money or otherwise?
The best investment I've ever made is in people.
I love that. Mm-hmm. What's a daily habit that keeps you grounded or focused?
Every day I do a devotion, quiet time, gratitude time. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Last one. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
What's your guilty pleasure splurge?
We love to travel. And we love to go out to eat.
Yeah.
Which can be dangerous.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
But you're stimulating the economy, so it's good.
Oh, yeah. Well, we like to, as my husband says, I don't like you up running around trying to cook. I'd rather us just sit down and let somebody serve us so that we can have a conversation.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, we've been
Um,
married 42 years and we still like each other. So I think that's a positive.
well, congratulations. I've been married 21 and we like each other too. But 42, you've got me doubled up.
Yeah, there we go.
Your approach, Nikki, to real estate as a service of, building people, right? You're building legacies, not just for yourself, but also for your agents and your clients. I mean, to think that you've got clients whose grandchildren are buying properties from you, that just speaks to you and what you've built. And that resonates.
Means I'm
Um,
old too, but that's okay.
well, it beats the alternative.
That's right. I woke up on
Nick,
this side of the grass.
exactly. Nikki, thank you for sharing your journey and revealing what it takes to make an impact and creating uncommon wealth. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your experience. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with you behind the scenes.
Great.
And if there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to let me know.
It's been wonderful to meet you, John.
Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate it.
Take care.